Welcome to the Courageous Ambassador Podcast. My name is Danny. I'm the campus pastor here at Grace Christian University. Today we have an awesome episode. We invited a former professor and president of the university, Dr. Sam Vinton, where we talked about his life and upbringing in the Congo, talked about ministry, mentorship, and how to live our lives with gratitude and thankfulness. Hope you guys enjoy. I want to talk a little bit about your upbringing, okay. Specifically your experience on the mission field. If you were to explain your childhood and where you grew up and how that influenced you today, what would be the main memories, the core events in your life that really shaped who you are today, what you're doing, what you have done throughout your life?
Yeah, two things I would say. One, as a child growing up, memorizing Bible verses, reading stories about the Bible, and also my mother had a book there. I don't know, I can't remember. It's a story, things that we should do or don't lie, or treating people by stories of someone did some bad thing, and so forth. And so you grew up there. I still remember one of them. This son kept lying and lying. So his dad said, "Okay, they got a piece of board and put it out there and say, every time you lie, we're going to take a nail and nail it in there." And so one day after he had a number of nails there, the kid said, "Well, I really, how do I get rid of, quit lying?" And he taught him. He said, "Oi," and so. He said, "Every time you tell the truth, we'll pull one nail out." And then the kid said, "Well, the mark is still there." He said, "Well, sometimes when we, even if we go back to God and we say we're sorry and I've told the truth about this, but the consequences, something you said that hurt someone, that's where those marks are." And so those kind of things, growing up there, and of course being involved in, like I said, reading Bible stories, books, and so forth. And then the other thing, really for me, and as far as my calling to serve the Lord, happened that when I was about 15, another missionary, older man, my dad's age, came, and he and my dad were working together, and he took me under his wings and started mentoring with me. I had already gone through the process of trusting Christ, and then eventually coming to realize the assurance of salvation. And so he was working with, every Monday night, we'd have a big 200, 400, 500, 600 young people come to church, like a Youth for Christ rallies that used to take place way in the back. He was in Chicago when that stuff started, so he did that there. And so he had me lead singing, do things with him, and then eventually some weekend he went out and spent Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in a village preaching and teaching. He'd take me with him. And through that process, I really came to understand about the Lord. And I read Baker's God's Clock of the Ages and one of O'Hare's books, and really got me thinking of studying and understanding theologically where we are and salvation and so forth. And then just a month or so before I came back to start school at Grace here, I was in a car accident, truck accident, where the pastor had passed. I was driving, and we came around the corner, and these roads out there in that area of the country, the mountainous there, and here my brake went out. And I turned around the corner and realized I figured, well, I'll get as far as, there's a big truck with 30 people in it.
Was this in the Congo?
Yes, in the Congo.
Okay.
And so, but here in front of me were workers digging a big ditch across the road, and then for the water to go under, and then they would put sticks and cover up where the trucks would go. And so there's the big ditch about this wide. And they, seeing me come, took off and jumped and got away from me. And so I naturally went into that thing, flipped. I don't know, the truck flipped. People flew all over the place. They were in the back where there was no coverage over them. And then it ended up going down a ravine. and I was tossed. I was driving, and how I fell out when that thing was turning around, I must have fallen out of the window because the glass in front was not broken. Yeah. And so I picked myself up on the other side of the road against the wall over there, yeah, and stood up, and I had nothing. Yeah. And then the first person I went to was one of my friends, young guy in my class. He was dead. Mm. And so 2 young people and the head pastor died. Wow. In that accident. And so here we are about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's nothing, I don't want to say jungles, but so the government office of Belgium was still there, and I happened to be completely, nothing wrong with me. Mm-hmm. So they said, well, maybe you ought to go back and about 2 or 3 miles down up the road, you'll find the government office, or tell them what happened, yeah, see what help we can get. Yep. And in walking there, people, of course, when the village saw me, they already heard of these people who ran away, took off, and so naturally, knowing the white man and the Belgian government, mm-hmm, they fled. Yep. And the thought came to me at that time, that here, those young people, 20, some of them, my Bible class and myself, we were going to go out and help build a new church, yeah, and so forth. And the thoughts in my mind, but then a verse that my mother taught me, Ephesians 1:11, he worketh all things according to the counsel of his own will. Mm-hmm. So it hit me and stabilized me to the place where I got there. He said, well, I have a pickup, so it's going to take me a lot of work, and we'll have to get it down to your father, mm-hmm, which is another 35, 50, 30 miles away. Wow. And so he said, just go in my house there and lay down and wait. Let me go down and see what I can do. Yeah. And I went down there. I went there and felt a real calmness. Yeah. Fell asleep there. Yeah. And eventually they came, and then we went. He took us down back to where my dad was. Mm-hmm. My dad came back here, picked up all these people. About 10 of them had broken arms or legs, mm-hmm, and drove them about 100 miles to a hospital. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that whole incident, and especially the idea of God works all things according to the counsel of his own will, mm-hmm, sort of struck me. I didn't understand completely what that meant, except that God is here. Mm-hmm. And so that affirmed to me that God had called me to serve him. He spared my life, mm-hmm, and I knew the language. I grew up, and I've been teaching Bible classes to the high schoolers that were there. Mm-hmm. And then a month later, I came back to Grace. Yeah. So that, I would say, would be my affirming thing to say, mm-hmm, God has called you, you know the language, you know these people, that this is where he wants you to serve him. Yeah.
I've heard countless stories of people who have gone through something similar in that it's just like a shock or like a traumatic experience or just something of that sort, that really brings into focus or clarity people and their purpose or where they find meaning in their life, and they realize, man, that was either a close death experience or just something that is so unexplainable that God had to have had a hand on it. And there's just no reason for explaining outside of that. And a lot of people, I've heard push back and say, well, that's because that's what humans do, right? They try to create meaning out of nothing so that we can feel better about ourselves. I mean that's probably partly true, but I think that there's something to that reveals God's not only working in our lives in this purpose, mm-hmm, but also just that there is a desire for God in humanity. There is a want, a longing for God. And if there is that longing, there has to be something that is present there that is active.
And I think because of seeing my parents, the compassion. My dad went out there at 20 years age. He just graduated from Bible Institute, went there, learned the language because I went by ship. In 3 months, he got there, he could speak Swahili, at least he could get along with people. And he began going out in villages. That was his job, preaching, getting people saved, and starting churches. Mm-hmm. But after doing that for about, let's say, 2 years, he came to the conclusion, here I'm telling these people they're going to go to heaven, where they're going to be all blessed and no diseases, no something. And here I am, I could do something to help them while they're still alive. And because people were sick, they had all these diseases and so forth. So he said, I'm finished preaching right now. And he went to Europe. And eventually the Belgian government at that time had an intensive 1-year course of tropical medicine, which he went to learn French and then did that, came back, started his medical center, eventually a maternity. But maternity, it took him about 5 or so years to persuade the people that he should do that, because the custom of the people is a man could not be at the birth of a child. So he could not do maternity work. And but he said one night, in the middle of the night, one of the women who was delivering babies there, what do you call them? What do you call them? Midwife came and knocked at his door and he said, you got to come and help us. We've got the daughter-in-law of the chief. And this is going to be the chief's first grandchild. And you have got to come. I said, well, you know that I'm not allowed. I said, well, we know that God works through your hands. And that was sort of the name that people had gave to him when they would talk on the drums and so forth. Anyway, and she said, if they get upset at you, they can kill you and me together. So my mother had the lantern, and my dad, they went out to be, and if we're there, when the mother was going to have a baby, you go just behind the village and you put the lean-to up and so forth, and that's where you had the baby. And so he went there, and my mother held up a lantern, and he was able to deliver the baby and save the wife, and the chief's son and his son's wife. And so naturally the next day they passed words around the villages through a drum. They had talking drums. And his name was, I don't know how many beats of a drum was, but I mean, that God uses his hands. And so 2 days later, all the chiefs of that whole area came to him and said, we want you to build a maternity. His house is there's a little road there, so when at night to come and wake you up, you can just go across and go to the maternity. And that building is still there. And this is, I mean, my goodness, it's 60, 70 years ago. And he said, you build that now, we want you to have maternity. And so he had a big dispensary. He did everything except surgery. And then a lot of people had leprosy. He saw them in villages, and so he went to the Belgian government and said, you know, this is not good to have these people out there like that. So they said, well, they gave him hundreds and hundreds, thousands of acres. This whole forest here, you take it. And you build houses, put a dispensary, a medical place there to help those people, and build a church, which they did. And the pastor went there, the African pastor who was sent to head that up. He was chased out by the people. I said, if God is so good like you're saying, why do I have leprosy? What happened to my finger? What happened to my ear? And they drove him out. He came back to my dad and the other elders there, and he said, I'm going to go back. So he went back, and he started building his own house, and as they were building their houses and so forth. And he was there for at least 20 years. I remember even preaching in the church there. A lot of those people were saved. And so those are kind of things I saw. And then this man, Chris Eggemeyer was his name, who then involved me in him doing services to give me a part. I played a harmonica, so I'd have special music. I taught some African guys, and we did things together like that, and then taking me to the village to hear him preaching and so forth. And so those were all the things that just completely caused me, even before that accident, to say, this is what God has for you. And he's given you the advantage that you don't have to learn a language. You know the people. You've grown up with them and so forth. And so when I came to Grace, that was already the issue was there. And for any girls, if you don't date that man unless you want to go to Africa. So anyway, that was my childhood there. And then here, when I came here, of course, I did eventually meet a girl from the from the North Shore Church in Chicago, who, in high school, they used to have what they call a high seat, like youth groups. Today they call them Youth for Christ or something like that. And she said one time that the guy was talking about serving the Lord in the mission field, and she had said to herself, well, I don't know how I can get there, but I'm willing to go. Yeah. And so eventually when she met me, she said, well, then that for the two of us to go, that fulfills my desire that I was going. And that's what happened. And of course, then from then on, teaching Bible school, training pastors, and working, eventually translating the Bible, and then that's my own ministry there. Yeah. Then eventually came back to teach here, and then became the director. So I was all those fields out there where I would be constantly going and holding meetings, and even in the last, just even that year I left here, I went out there to teach my son Bill. They had 15 minutes they'd chosen to have so many hours of training so they could go and start a Bible school and so forth. So I went and taught theology to them, and then I went 3 years later to finish up with the teaching and graduation of those guys. Yeah. So I've done, so I just, and then going over here to the Holland Church, where both pastors were former students of mine, and then to be able to get involved in teaching and being respected by people there. Of course, they know about that. And Gary, Pastor Gary, he and I were friends, and he and I team taught here at Grace and so forth. And so you got people calling me Dr. Sam. I mean, and people realize, well, I'm probably as old as anybody else around there, but President Kemper is the one who got people to call me Dr. Sam, because I'm not the only one who had a doctorate. But the African tradition is that once a person is old, you cannot just call him Sam. Yeah. You have to either put the word elder or Mr. or Doctor or everything. And I think that is, for 17 years he worked out there, that when he came here, for him to call me even Sam would not be, to him it would not be right.
No, it's a form of respect.
Yeah. And so that's the reason they called me that, and that's what they called me there too. But not that I certainly did not tell them to call me that. Yeah. So anyway.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but your dad, your parents, they were the first and longest running missionaries in the Congo, correct? Or how did that work?
As far as I've been able to find out in all my studies, because is my mother died, but she had a heart attack, and so he went on for 20 years by himself. Yep. But my dad is the longest serving missionary in the history of Christianity, of Christians in Africa. In Africa, yeah. I don't know about any other place, and I don't know, some Catholics, fathers could have been long because they didn't have families, they were just out there in many cases like that. But anyway, as far as Africa is concerned, and any books that I've read someone in India, the husband was a doctor. He died, and she continued there for quite a number of years afterwards, but still not, maybe 5 or 6 years less than my dad.
Yeah. And what was that? What was the time span?
76 years.
6 years, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's a long time.
Yeah, he was 96 when then he had a stroke that just affected his the alphabet, the language came out mixed up. Yep. He was still healthy enough to take care of himself and so forth. And so naturally he wanted to stay there and die there because my mother's buried there. Yeah. But I talked my sister and my 2 brothers, we all talked about that and said, for the Africans, usually a person does not die unless someone has poisoned them or done something of a spiritual type thing. And so he would, the Africans would take care of him well, and most of the work in the house and so forth would be done by older women who were there, and they could very well be blamed. Why didn't you guys let them die? And then my sister, we said, my brother and my brothers, or three brothers and a sister. We say, if we went out there, we wouldn't be able to persuade him. Let's send our sister out there. Yeah. He listens to her better than he listens to us. So she's the youngest. So she went out there and brought him back. Wow. and he lived for another probably 8 months, and he was still getting along pretty good. And then he got a fever. She thought maybe it was malaria and gave him some, but after a week, took him to a hospital. In 3 days, he went into a coma, and then doctor said, well, he should have died right then, but his heart was still so strong that he lasted another 3 days, and then he died.
Wow.
So, but he's 76 years.
So, what was the main mission field there? Like, who? I guess to be more specific, what religion or people group were you guys targeting and pursuing? What is the main demographic there that had influence?
That whole area that my dad went to, and he wasn't the only one. The school that he went to, Pittsburgh Bible Institute, they sent the one who was sort of one of these big guru type guys who ran a church and the Bible Institute, and then they formed a mission organization. And I would say about 3 or 4 years before my dad went, they had sent, and for some reason, the Protestants had an agreement among themselves back there that where another Protestant mission is already working, we're not going to go in there and do something there. Yeah. And that was something they kept to them. And then after independence, and things went. Anyway, so these people went there. There was evidently, it was a tribe, and most of these people were tribes, and this is a pretty big tribe that was there, that they went to and started the work. And it's one of those missionaries who had come back to America, happened to come and speak at the Bible Institute, like in the spring, I don't know, one of the meetings at the end of the year, whatever. And he said, and challenged him, anybody who can come and help us out and so forth. So my dad, and I'm sure my dad did not feel that he was going there forever. Yeah. I'm sure his dad didn't. If you go, I said, let him go. It's just one of those things. He'll get back here. And so he went, and they went by ship back in those days. And so that's when, all day long, he's just learning the language and with these missionaries. And when he got there, so that's how he got there. My mother. He and my mother knew each other there at school, and maybe had some kind of a closeness or affinity with him. But then she left to go like a year and a half later. And this organization that was there had one main station, and people and my dad and others were around. So she was sent to that station where she had a school there, taught women and so forth there, And then it was a year after that my dad had this feeling, I got to go out and get more training, medical training. Yeah. So, and he had gone probably and seen my mother before that, and they must have gone far enough to say, well, we'll see how things go, but we're here, we get married. Yeah. But then he went to Europe and Belgium, and when he finishes there, came back, and then he had to do an internship at the government hospital there, and then they wanted to get married, and the Belgian government said, well, you have to have documents and so forth from the U.S. Embassy. Yeah. Well, the U.S. Embassy in Congo had been closed because of depression, and so they couldn't get any papers. So she came over to where he was. He was near the Lake Tanganyika. There is the hospital. And they got on the boat and went over to the other side where the British were running Tanzania. And so Justice of the Peace married him there, and turned around, got on the boat, came back, and that was it. And then I was born a year later. Okay. Yeah.
So it sounds like the main thing that he was there for was like medical care, right? That was his focus.
He went there for evangelism.
Okay.
And church planting.
What were like the main religions that were?
It would be what you like tribal religions.
Okay.
Tribal, and they had like what you and I would maybe call a witch doctor, but not some guys. There was a group of people that sort of controlled the people as far as what they can do, can't do, and all that kind of stuff. And
order
Yeah,
and things like
it's
that.
a tribal religious belief. They believe in a God.
Yeah.
And which is where my dad began with them and asked him who he was. I mean, when he traveled, they had to go by foot for 200 kilometers, or that's 150 miles or 60 miles, and just go and he sleep in the village with the people and talking to people around the fire in the evening and ask them, who do you believe, who created this? And they had a belief of a God.
Okay,
and then they said that, how do you get to them? Well, our ancestors are the ones who die here and go up there, and then they can speak up for us and that kind of stuff. And then my dad said, well, God loves you. He sent someone to do it. You don't have to go. He had some very amazing thing. At that time, no one talked about cultural anthropology and all that kind of stuff. Even that came later.
Yeah.
But I don't know how in the world he got that. I know maybe his father was a superintendent of coal mines out there in Pennsylvania, but he had told him, when you go out there, don't go out there and tell people what to do or not to do. Do it yourself so they can see it. And that was his philosophy when he got out there, because they had very small windows in their house, about this big. And my dad, because of his medical, he was an Eagle Scout. He liked, if he had stayed in America, I could see he could have been a doctor. And so he would tell them, you need air. These houses were small, and there are that little windows. He said, we can't do that. Why not? He said, if we had a big enough window, at night the witches would come down here and pull us out and take us out.
Interesting.
And of course, traditional Americans would say that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as that. He didn't do that. He just went and built his own house, and he put big windows in there. Yeah. And his friends came to him and said, "Do you know how in the world can you live with a big window like this?" And I said, "Even a big mama could be taken out through this big window of yours." He said, "I don't have to worry about that. I have the big spirit of God is inside here. Yep. So I'm sleeping in there. When these witches come," he didn't say there was no witches. He just said, when they come there, well, he's bigger than they are. So he would stop. Wow. And that same thing, he told me, he said, the way they planted and so forth, there are ways that they could do a better job. But instead of him going out and telling them to change what they've been doing for 100 years, he just made his own garden there, and things grew nicely, and people said, "What did you do?" And then people adapted that. Yeah. And he was very good at that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a beautiful method.
Yeah.
It's biblical.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus says they'll know that you are my disciples by the way that you love others.
Yeah.
And it's the clearest way. So not because you have different cultures, different upbringings, different understandings, right? For people here in America, they would hear that and think, "Wow, that's obviously crazy. Like, we would never do something like that." But he didn't go there to prove people wrong and be like, "No, this you guys are incorrect in this way," but to show them and point them to the truth and say, "This is what is true," and people's lives would be impacted by that.
And I'm sure they will, after he moved into his house, they'll probably waiting to see if we'll go over there and find he was been taken away.
He's been gone for like 2 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I really have to say my parents' compassion for people, my mother working with women. I can still remember as a teenager, maybe even a little bit, maybe 10, 11, 12 years, if I'd had to run back into the house to get something. In the corner there, my mother would be sitting there with 3, 4, 5 women, teaching them, praying with them, helping them, that kind of stuff. And so that's just what that you couldn't get away from some affecting you to see how he lived. Yep. Not even in your mind saying, "Well, when I'm a missionary." No, I didn't have that in my mind that I was going to be a missionary at that time. I just saw it as a kid. Yeah. And anyway. It's one of these things I even, when I used to teach here, in the first class, I would put on the backboard the word thanksgiving or gratitude on the bottom. I said, that's my philosophy of life right there. I said, if you have thanksgiving to God, then that leaves you to the place where you see people over here who don't have what you have. can you imagine how many million young people would be dying to come into a class like you guys are here if they could if it could happen to them?
Oh, yeah.
And I said that you have it. You see a guy out there begging. Now you guys are poor. I said, but what I may be able to give him something, but I'll probably people will criticize me for giving him to them. But anyway, do you feel anything in your heart? Because the next thing, when you are really have a solid condition in your heart of thanksgiving, immediately you come to realize that I have more than some people. Yeah. And so that leads you to the idea of compassion. So that person is there. You can't give him anything, but if you're thankful, you're going to say to God, Lord, I could be like that. That could be me. But I'm not. So I said that, and then someday, when you're able to do something, that moves it into action. But you have to start where you are, and too many of us are not appreciating what we have. And of course, when you just been living here, you haven't gone to any place else where people are poor, or even here in America, you haven't gone into areas where people are poor. Yep. And so that to me has really stayed with me as far as, and I cannot go one day, even sometimes 2 or 3 times, like, that little song, How Can I Say Thanks for the Things You've Done for Me? That just keeps coming on. Yep. I can't sleep without humming that, singing that. I quit singing because then I'd wake up my wife. So but anyway, and I think I just saw that. Yes. I can't remember. And of course, I'm sure she taught us to say thank you. I mean, a lot of people don't even know how to say thank you anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard you. So you've been talking about just the amazing impact that your father, your mother, Chris, people in your life that have like instilled these principles into you and has led you to teaching others. You would become a mentor of mentors who have become my mentor, and other people who are teaching today, or like you said, Joe Johnson, who's your pastor at Parkside, but you taught him in class. So it's been astounding to just witness that. In that experience with being brought up and having people pour into your lives, what are the main things or principles that you have brought and tried to instill in those that you have taught, to prepare them to equip others for the work of the Lord? Yeah,
well, one thing, like I said, first thing I get in class, I put the word Thanksgiving there. Yep. I think that to me is just, and it keeps getting stronger. Why am I the only man in my freshman class when we got here? I have a list in my computer of all the 30 students who started in my class back in 1951. Just a couple weeks ago, there were 2 of us of everyone has died, except a number of women. But all the men who were pastors, everything, I'm the only one left.
Wow.
There was one other guy, he wasn't a pastor, he was up in Alaska, went and built his house somewhere to get away from people and so forth. I just got word, Spooner, he was John Spooner's, would be John Spooner's I think either father or uncle. Anyway, he just died. So now I'm the only man left out of 30.
Wow.
So I say to myself, why me?
Yeah.
But I've come to the conclusion, God still has something for you to do.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful by going to Parkside, being a smaller church, and enough flood of teachers and other people from Grace and so forth.
Also, you stay fit. You go to Planet Fitness and jog everywhere you go. I remember when you were teaching here and I was a student, you would jog everywhere you would go.
Yeah, quite often just to get out of the cold.
Yeah, that's true. That is.
Yeah, and so I think that to be thankful for what you have, and therefore, in the sense of being thankful means that you've got to do something to make yourself be in a position to where you can do something to someone else.
Yeah.
That's the way I pass on what I got to you, and you then, that's going to be your next generation doing the same thing. And that's where you guys are at that position of doing that. And I think Calvé and Jake and Even Phil Long was a student of mine, and he goes back, I think, to long. I don't think anybody else has been here longer than him. Ken Kemper, and Ken Kemper especially because I mentored him to become a missionary because he had come here having gone to the Philippines and felt, well, I'd like to be a missionary. So all the way till the time he left, I was involved in, and when I would go out there, work with him and so forth, and he actually got to the place where he became the leader of our team in Tanzania. And to me, yeah. And after my lifestyle, how I lived with them, and how I never looked down on. Of course, coming from Africa, where people are so far below me, if education and so forth, back when I was a kid and so forth, is different. Yet all my friends were Africans. We'd go out in the forest, climb trees, do stuff like that. We had a slingshot, we didn't have any guns, and try and hit a bird or so forth, and kill it and so forth, that kind of stuff like that. They were all Africans, and I'm a white person, but it didn't make any difference to me. We were just out there. And when I was there, was it 3 years ago, 3 years this summer, my first Bible school class that I had, there was about 18, 20 students. Only one is left. And so that means he's around 90 as well, because he was a young student.
Wow.
And he's the chief of a village.
Wow.
And but the other ones have died. In fact, no other of the pastors that I trained are there. The ones who are really the big leaders of our churches out there are now Bill, my son's students.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I've heard kind of three big things that you've shared. Earlier you mentioned memorizing scripture. I feel like that's so underrated. Like we don't spend enough time doing that. I myself, it's something that doesn't come natural, but even so, it's something that is so beneficial to us. Memorizing scripture, gratitude, being thankful, and also setting that example, just like your father showed you, and you've instilled in others as well throughout your time. If you could give one, if there's anything to that, or in addition to that, if you can give one thing to encourage people who are desiring to seek ministry, whether it's pastoral or mission work, what would be that thing that you would want a student or a young person to hear?
Get involved right away. In other words, whether you're going to teach a Sunday school class, first of all, of course, you have to get involved with Christians.
Yeah.
I mean, and I believe, of course, in a school like this, it's a Christian school, so we have those things here too. But get involved in a local church. And from there, start seeing what you can do. And to me, or if there's gospel teams or other things that people do, or like the guy who preached to us last 2 Sundays ago there at, if he's going to be thinking, maybe God wants me to be a pastor, well, if you're given a chance to start learning, go ahead and start doing it.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait till you become a pastor to speak. You start.
You're talking about Isaiah, the student here?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Is his name Isaiah?
Yeah, pastoral student. He came with the Grace Travelers.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's the one from up north. Yeah. He did a good job.
Yes.
And so that's my thing. You can't wait here and so it's as though God's going to speak from heaven to you and then take you there or whatever.
Yep.
You have to start. And from here, start being thankful. Start helping people. Look around. You may find some students who are here who don't have what you have, either financially or education-wise or Christian training and so forth. Or maybe you're just a smart student, and someone there is struggling. Help them.
Yeah.
Those are, to me, that's what I would say. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam. This was a great time to be able to talk to you, get to hear more about your backstory and your call to ministry and your life and how you have impacted others.
Well, I appreciate you being able to do this together, but I'm just thankful to the Lord that He still has me here to do something for Him.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed in the sense of my family, other missionaries who are there as I'm a kid, and he's a missionary teaching me, training me, and then coming to Grace. And my years here, we'd go out to the prisons, we did a lot of things back there, going to street meetings. They allowed us back in the days to do street meetings out there. We do that and then start teaching Sunday school, always with the idea of how can I help someone else.
Yeah.
And God bringing back here, I have to thank God that President Dean had that idea to say, he was the president, but he started out as my roommate and became the president of the school later on. And I told him, I said, I have to, in 4 years I can think about it. I have a commitment to finish translating the Bible here, and my son has to graduate, my daughter has to graduate from high school. I'm not going to bring her back here to start high school after living out in Africa. And at that time, there was a lot of people, students in the university burning down buildings and all that kind of stuff. And so we stayed there till when she graduated. We were able to come back here and start teaching, and then I had to go back to school. I only had a bachelor's degree. So I did the 3-year Master of Divinity program in 4 years. Dr. DeWitt made sure that my classes, when I knew I had to be at the seminary, he'd move my classes at that out so that they wouldn't conflict, and that's the only reason I could have done it. I did some summer classes, and all that is just they're things that I can't forget to thank God. How in the world did I get there, this missionary kid from Africa, and to be the director, the president of the school, and then director of GMI. It's just been a real blessing to me.
Yeah. I would love to have you back on so we could talk more about your experiences as the president of the university and director of GMI and just get into weeds of that. I feel like if we could sum up this this episode, gratitude, thankfulness is what really is shown in part of your story and just like the teachings that you've shared. If there could be one thing for a hearer to take away is to be grateful, but allow that gratefulness to be permeated and living it out for Christ.
Yes.
So letting the gratitude of what God has done for you to point you toward Him and toward loving others.
Yeah, and I think that that's important. Like I found some article, 10 reasons to be grateful. And I had pulled it out of some magazine a long time ago. I found it the other day, so I have it there next to my bed.
Yeah.
And it's 10 things. The fact that God is sovereign, He's in control.
Yeah.
He forgave you. He loves you. They go all the way down to the very end. He answers prayer, and I have that. And for the next week or two, I'll probably be pulling it out. I just keep trying to get information like that to encourage me. That's who I am because of God.
Yep. And I've heard people do a similar thing where they write a list and 10 things I'm thankful for, grateful for as well. It's something that is a great way to practice. But thank you so much, Dr. Sam, once again. And
appreciate very much being here.
This has been a great time talking to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
God bless you. I'm glad to hear your